The hospital hallway and spoken smelled of disinfectant and despair. Olivia Spencer stood before the door to room 307, her hand frozen on the cold handle. Beside her, Joseph, her 14-year-old son, rocked gently back and forth, one of his self-soothing movements whenever he felt anxious. "Mom." The boy's voice came out low, almost a whisper. "Will he recognize me?" That simple question carried the weight of 12 years of absence. 12 years in which that man hadn't existed. 12 years in which Olivia had built an entire life from scratch, turning her pain into a thriving business, her tears into strength. And now, on the other side of that door, was a stranger, a man Joseph had never met, but whose DNA he shared. A man who had run away at the hardest moment of their lives and now lay paralyzed from the waist down, depressed, giving up on life. Olivia took a deep breath. Her hands trembled. How had she ended up here? How could a woman who had sworn never to speak that name again be about to walk into that room? How could the coward who abandoned her alone with a devastating diagnosis now depend on her to survive? "Let's go in, my love," Olivia finally said, her voice steadier than she felt inside. But before turning the handle, she closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to go back to the beginning, to the day everything fell apart, to the moment she had to choose between falling to pieces or rising from the ashes. This is the story of how her son's autism not only saved Joseph, but brought a man back from the dead. Seattle, Washington, March 2012. Spring arrived shyly in the Pacific Northwest. The cherry trees in the Ballard neighborhood were beginning to bloom, painting the streets in pale shades of pink. But Olivia couldn't see beauty in anything those days. She was sitting in the waiting room of Seattle Children's Hospital, watching Joseph play in the corner with his toy cars. The boy was 2.5, with rosy cheeks and brown curls that bounced when he ran. But something had been keeping Olivia awake at night for months. Joseph didn't respond when she called his name. He didn't make eye contact. He lined up his toys in perfect patterns and had meltdowns if anyone moved them. When other children approached him at the park, he withdrew, preferring the comfort of his quiet routines. "Spencer family?" The nurse's voice cut through her thoughts. David stood up first, extending his hand to help Olivia. At that moment, he was still her safe harbor. Married for 4 years, they had built a comfortable life in their home in the Fremont neighborhood. David worked as a sales manager at a tech company, and Olivia was a freelance personal development consultant, a modest business that was just starting to take off. "Everything's going to be fine," David whispered, squeezing her hand. But it wasn't. Dr. Patricia Chun, a renowned pediatric neurologist in Seattle, greeted them in her office with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. On her desk were piles of reports, evaluations, and charts. 3 months of observations, dozens of tests, hours of behavioral analysis. "Mr. and Mrs. Spencer," she began, her voice calm but direct. "After a comprehensive evaluation, I can confirm that Joseph is on the autism spectrum, specifically what we classify as autism spectrum disorder level 2, which means he will need substantial support in social communication and behavior." Olivia's world stopped spinning. She heard the doctor continue talking about early interventions, ABA therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. Words like deficit, delay, challenges, long-term floated in the air like fragments of a nightmare. Olivia looked at David. He was pale, his hand still holding hers, but suddenly that touch felt distant, mechanical. His eyes were fixed on the doctor, but she recognized that look. It was the look of someone who was already far, far away. "What are the chances of recovery?" David asked, and Olivia felt something break inside her at that word. Recovery. As if Joseph were something broken that needed fixing. "We don't use the term recovery when talking about autism, Mr. Monson," Dr. Chun explained patiently. "Joseph isn't a sick child. He's an autistic child. With the right interventions, proper support, and unconditional love, he can live a full and meaningful life. But yes, it will be a journey that requires dedication, patience, and resources." Resources. Olivia knew what that meant. Expensive therapies, specialists, time, emotional energy she wasn't sure she still had. But when she looked at Joseph, still playing in the corner, lining up his toy cars in a sequence only he understood. Her heart swelled with a love so fierce it hurt. "What do we need to do?" Olivia asked, her voice steady despite the tears forming in her eyes. The doctor smiled this time, a genuine smile. "I'll refer you to our early intervention team. The sooner we start, the better the outcomes will be." The appointment lasted another 40 minutes. Dr. Chen was patient, answering every question, dispelling fears, offering realistic hope. When they finally left the office, Seattle's typical rain had begun to fall, turning the parking lot into a mirror of wet asphalt. David didn't say a word during the entire drive to the car. Olivia buckled Joseph into his car seat, kissed his soft forehead, then slid into the passenger seat. The silence inside the car was suffocating. "David," she called softly. He started the car, the windshield wipers moving in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. "I just need some time to process this." Time. He needed time. Olivia didn't know it yet, but David's time was running out. The 3 days that followed that appointment were the quietest of Olivia's life. David left early for work and came home late. When he was home, he locked himself in his office or stayed glued to his phone, claiming work pressure, impossible deadlines, meetings with the East Coast. Olivia knew those signs. She knew the man she had married. He wasn't dealing with deadlines. He was running away. Meanwhile, Olivia threw herself completely into what needed to be done. The morning after the appointment, she already had a folder neatly organized with information about autism. She spent hours on online forums, reading other mothers' stories, absorbing knowledge like a desperate sponge. She discovered the Seattle Autism Center, Washington State's early intervention program, and support groups in Fremont and Ballard. Her mother, Dorothy Spencer, arrived from Tacoma that Thursday afternoon. A 58-year-old woman with gray hair tied in a bun and blue eyes that carried the wisdom of someone who had raised 3 children alone after her husband's early death. "My girl," Dorothy said as she hugged Olivia at the door, and only then did Olivia allow the tears to fall. "Mom, I'm so scared," she whispered against her mother's shoulder. "I know, sweetheart. I know." Dorothy pulled back, cupping her daughter's face in her hands. "But you're stronger than you think. You always have been. And Joseph has you. That's all he needs." "And David?" Olivia asked, her voice cracking. Dorothy looked toward the office, where the door remained closed. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "David's going to have to decide whether he wants to be part of this family or not." Those words hung in the air like a prophecy. That night, Olivia tried one more time. She made David's favorite dinner, grilled salmon with maple glaze, a Pacific Northwest specialty, roasted asparagus, and wild rice. She lit a candle on the table and waited for him to come home. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 10:30. When David finally walked through the door, dinner was cold. The candle had melted halfway down, and Olivia was sitting on the couch staring at the wall. "Sorry I'm late," he muttered, avoiding her eyes. "I've got a big presentation tomorrow and—" "David, stop." Olivia stood, walking toward him. "Please stop running. We need to talk about this." "Talk about what, Liv?" He finally looked at her, and Olivia saw something in his eyes that terrified her. It was desperation, panic, defeat, about how our life just got turned upside down, about how we're going to spend the rest of our lives taking care of a kid who's never going to be normal. The words hit Olivia like slaps. "Don't you ever use that word about our son again," she said, her voice low but filled with a fury she didn't know she possessed. "Joseph is perfect just the way he is." "He's not perfect, Olivia. Wake up." David ran a hand through his hair, his frustration spilling over. "He's going to need special care forever. Expensive therapies. Special schools. I didn't sign up for this when we decided to have a kid." The silence that followed was razor sharp. "You didn't sign up for this?" Olivia repeated, incredulous. "No one signs up for challenges, David. No one plans for hardship. But it comes, and we face it. Together. Or at least, that's what I thought our marriage meant." David shook his head, backing away. "I don't know if I can do this." And there it was. The raw, unfiltered truth, finally spoken aloud. "So what are you saying?" Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. I'm saying I need time. I need to think. This is just too much. Our son needs you, Olivia said, tears now streaming freely. I need you. But David was already heading upstairs, his suitcase being dragged from the closet, the sound of drawers opening and closing echoing through the house. Dorothy, who had just put Joseph to bed, appeared at the bedroom door. She and Olivia exchanged a look. No words were needed. I'll stay at a friend's place for a few days, David said when he came back down, suitcase in hand. Just until I clear my head. David, if you walk out that door, Olivia began. What, Liv? You'll leave me? You'll be done. He laughed, a bitter sound. Maybe you should. Maybe it's better for everyone. And then he was gone. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like thunder. Olivia stood there, staring at that door, feeling her world crumble brick by brick. Dorothy came to her, wrapping her in her arms, and finally Olivia broke down. She cried for hours, cried for the marriage that was falling apart, cried for her son's diagnosis, cried for the uncertain future that stretched before her like a dark abyss. But deep down, somewhere within her, a small flame ignited. A flame of anger, yes, but also of determination. If David couldn't handle this, she would. If he couldn't love Joseph unconditionally, she would love enough for both of them. If he was giving up, she was just getting started. David came back 2 days later, on a rainy April Saturday. Olivia was in the kitchen with Dorothy, organizing Joseph's first week of therapy. The Seattle Autism Center had managed to fit them in quickly after a cancellation, and occupational therapy sessions were set to begin on Monday. Olivia had spent the past 48 hours learning everything she could about autism, sensory strategies, alternative communication, structured routines. Joseph was in the living room, watching the same episode of Thomas the Tank Engine for the 10th time. It was his comfort episode, the one he turned to when the world became too loud, too chaotic. When the key turned in the lock, Olivia felt her heart race. David walked in, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, a defeated look she had never seen on him before. He glanced at Olivia, then at Dorothy, who met his gaze with a look that made it perfectly clear what she thought of him in that moment. Hi, he said simply. Hi, Olivia replied, her voice cautious. Can we talk? Dorothy stood up, kissed the top of Olivia's head. I'll take Joseph to Cary Park. We'll go for a walk. Once they were gone, David sat down at the kitchen table. Olivia remained standing, leaning against the counter, keeping her distance. I'm sorry, David began, his voice hoarse. I shouldn't have left like that. I was a coward. You were, Olivia said bluntly. He nodded, accepting it. I've been thinking a lot these past few days. And Liv, I love you. I love Joseph too. But when I look at the future, all I see is uncertainty, struggle. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. Olivia felt something harden inside her. No one knows if they're strong enough until they're tested, David. You think I feel strong. You think I'm not terrified. But Joseph didn't choose this. He needs parents who will fight for him, not parents who run the moment things get hard. I know that. David rubbed his face with his hands. That's why I came back. To try. To be here. Olivia wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But there was something in his eyes. Something she couldn't quite name. Fear. Doubt. 1 foot already out the door, even as he promised to stay. Okay, she finally said. Let's try. And they did. For 3 weeks, they tried. David went to Joseph's first occupational therapy session. He watched his son have a full sensory meltdown when the therapist tried to introduce a new texture. He saw Olivia calm him with infinite patience, softly singing the song that always soothed him, respecting his limits while gently encouraging him to try again. He went to the meeting with the special education school Joseph would attend in the fall. He listened as they discussed individualized education plans, accommodations, long-term goals. And with each passing day, Olivia saw the light in his eyes dim a little more. He began working later again, started accepting business trips he used to decline, began creating distance in subtle ways that hurt more than words ever could. And then came that morning, April 17th, 2012. Olivia woke to the faint spring sunlight streaming through the bedroom window. The bed beside her was empty, but that wasn't unusual. David often got up early to go to the gym before work, but something felt different that morning. A silence that was more than the absence of sound. It was the absence of presence. Olivia sat up, her heart already beginning to pound. Then she saw it, a white envelope on David's nightstand, her name written in his familiar handwriting. With trembling hands, she picked it up. Heavy, final. Inside, a handwritten note and their joint credit card. Olivia unfolded the note, and the words swam before her eyes as she read. "Liv, I'm sorry. Such a small word for something this big, but it's all I have. I tried. I swear I did. But with every passing day, I feel like I'm drowning. I look ahead and I don't see a way out. I don't see a future where I'm the man you and Joseph need. You're stronger than me. You always have been. You'll give Joseph everything he needs. I'll only get in the way. I'll resent it. I'll become someone bitter that neither of you deserves to know. I deposited $20,000 into your account. It's all I've saved. Use it for Joseph's therapy. Use it to start over. Please don't try to find me. Don't try to convince me to come back. This is for the best. I love you both. That's why I'm leaving. David." Olivia read the note once, twice, 3 times. Then, very calmly, she set it back on the nightstand, stood up, walked into the bathroom, and threw up. When there was nothing left in her stomach, she slid down to the cold tile floor, wrapped her arms around her knees, and finally allowed the full horror of it to hit her. He was gone, truly gone. He had abandoned them, given up, run away, and worse, he'd made it sound like an act of love, as if walking away from a woman with a special needs child were some kind of noble sacrifice. Olivia didn't know how long she stayed there. It could have been minutes or hours, but at some point she heard it, the small, melodic voice of her son in the next room. "Mama, Mama." Joseph was waking up. Her boy, her perfect, autistic, extraordinary boy. He was waking up, and he needed her. Olivia stood, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red, swollen. Her hair was a mess. She looked exactly how she felt, shattered. But she didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Not now. Not when Joseph needed her. So she did what she would do every day for the next 12 years. She put on a mask of strength, forced a smile she didn't feel, and went to care for her son. "Good morning, my love," she said as she entered Joseph's room, her voice trembling only slightly. Joseph was in his bed, surrounded by his toy cars, perfectly lined up in neat rows. He didn't look at her when she entered. He rarely did. But he smiled, that beautiful smile that lit up his whole face. "Mama," he said again, and that little word, that single, precious word, gave Olivia all the strength she needed. She lifted him into her arms, breathed in the scent of baby shampoo in his curls, and made a silent promise. She would not give up. Never. No matter how hard it got, how lonely, how impossible it seemed. She would be everything Joseph needed: mother, father, fighter, advocate, protector. And David would be erased, as if he had never existed, because in her mind, at that moment, he no longer did. He was dead. The first 6 months were the hardest. Dorothy temporarily moved from Tacoma into Olivia's house in Fremont, sleeping in what had once been David's office. She was the anchor that kept Olivia from completely sinking. There were mornings when Olivia woke up and reality hit her like a runaway train. Single mother, autistic son, barely functioning business, $20,000 that looked like a lot on paper but vanished quickly between therapy sessions, rent, groceries, and bills. Joseph's therapy sessions took place 4 times a week. Occupational therapy on Mondays and Wednesdays at the Seattle Autism Center. Speech therapy on Tuesdays and Thursdays at a clinic in Ballard. Each session cost $150 after insurance, $6,000 a month just in therapy. The money David had left lasted 4 months. Olivia had to make impossible choices. She cut the therapies down to 3 sessions a week, alternating between occupational and speech therapy. She applied for every state program she could find, but the waiting lists were long. and the bureaucracy was crushing. Her personal development consulting business was practically dead. She had canceled all her clients to focus on Joseph. She didn't have the time, energy, or mental space to help other people improve their lives when hers was falling apart. In July 2012, Olivia looked at her bank account and saw a balance of $1,247. The rent on the Fremont house was $2,100. She sat at the kitchen table, the same one where David had sat months earlier, and finally faced the truth. She needed to start over for real. Not just emotionally, but practically. "Mom," she called to Dorothy, who was playing with Joseph in the living room. "We need to talk." That night, they made a plan. Olivia would sell the house. It was too big, too expensive, and every corner carried memories of David. She would find a smaller, more affordable apartment in a neighborhood with good schools and access to autism services. She would rebuild her business, but this time differently. No more generic personal development consulting. She would specialize in something she now understood intimately: resilience, overcoming hardship, finding strength through adversity. And she would make it work, because she had no other choice. The house sold in September to a young, excited couple with renovation plans and family dreams. Olivia signed the papers and felt a strange mix of relief and loss. She found a 2-bedroom apartment in West Seattle, in the Admiral neighborhood. It was smaller, more modest, but the morning light poured through the windows in a way that made Joseph smile. There was a small park 3 blocks away where Joseph could swing. The back-and-forth motion always calmed him. And the rent was $1,400, something Olivia could manage if she was careful. Dorothy returned to Tacoma, but visited every weekend, a ritual that would last the next 12 years. And Olivia began to rebuild. She created a new website for her business, Spencer Resilience Consulting. She specialized in life coaching for single mothers, women going through difficult divorces, parents of children with special needs. She spoke from a place of authenticity now. Every word, every strategy, every tool she offered came from lived experience. The first clients came slowly. A referral from one of Joseph's therapists, a woman she met at the Autism Parents Support Group Olivia had started attending, a LinkedIn post that resonated with someone. But gradually, her name began to spread. Olivia Spencer, the woman who was abandoned with an autistic son and not only survived but thrived. The consultant who truly understood what it meant to rebuild your life from the rubble. By December 2012, 8 months after David left, Olivia had her first profitable month, $3,500. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Built with her own hands, her own determination. And Joseph was making small but meaningful progress. He still didn't speak much. His speech was delayed compared to neurotypical children his age, but he had started using a few words consistently. Mama, water, car. No. He was learning to communicate his needs through picture cards his speech therapist had introduced. He still had sensory meltdowns, especially in noisy places or when his routines were disrupted. But Olivia was learning to read the signs, to anticipate triggers, to create an environment where Joseph felt safe being exactly who he was. On cold winter nights in Seattle, after putting Joseph to bed, Olivia would sit on the small balcony of their apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, and allow herself to feel. She felt anger. She felt betrayal. She felt the deep ache of abandonment. But she also felt pride. Fierce pride in everything she had built. Pride in her extraordinary son, who was blossoming despite the challenges. Pride in herself for not giving up when it would have been so much easier to fall apart. David never called, never wrote, never tried to find out how they were. And slowly, Olivia stopped expecting him to. He was dead to her, dead to Joseph. A footnote in their story, nothing more. Life went on, and they were not just surviving, but learning to live again. 2015, Seattle, Washington. 3 years had passed since David left. Joseph was now 5.5 and had just started kindergarten at an inclusive school in West Seattle. It was a public school with an exceptional program for children on the spectrum, and Joseph was thriving. His speech had improved dramatically. He still had his own unique way of communicating, more direct, literal, without the social filters other children naturally developed. But he communicated. He laughed. He had intense interests that changed every few months. That semester, it was dinosaurs. Joseph knew the name of every species, where they lived, what they ate. "Mama, did you know the Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic?" he asked one morning at breakfast, his eyes shining with excitement as he looked not directly at her, but at a spot just above her shoulder. "I didn't know that, sweetheart," Olivia replied, smiling as she poured her coffee. "Tell me more." And Joseph did, in painstaking detail, for 20 minutes, while Olivia listened with genuine interest, asking questions, celebrating his encyclopedic knowledge. It was moments like these that reminded Olivia why she fought so hard. Olivia's business had grown exponentially over the past 3 years. Spencer Resilience Consulting was no longer just her. She had hired 2 associate consultants, women who had also gone through their own journeys of overcoming hardship. They each specialized in different areas, one in divorce and financial rebuilding, the other in parenting children with special needs. But the real turning point came in 2014, when Olivia began working with the state government of Washington. She had been invited to develop a resilience training program for public employees working in social services, social workers, therapists, counselors who dealt daily with difficult cases and human suffering. The program was a resounding success. Olivia didn't just understand resilience theoretically, she had lived it. Every module, every exercise, every strategy came from real battles she had fought and won. She spoke about trauma and recovery with an authenticity that resonated deeply with people who faced trauma every day. The Washington Department of Social and Health Services hired her on a 2-year contract. Then came the Department of Education, wanting similar training for special education teachers. Then the King County Public Health System. By 2015, Spencer Resilience Consulting had $450,000 a year in contracts with multiple Washington state agencies. Olivia had moved from her small West Seattle apartment to a comfortable 3-bedroom house in Magnolia, a quiet neighborhood overlooking Puget Sound. She had done it, against all odds. She had built not just a business, but a modest empire of personal development centered on true resilience. Joseph had his own room, painted a deep blue with glowing star stickers on the ceiling that he loved. He had all the therapies he needed, now fully covered through a combination of improved insurance and the state programs Olivia had finally been approved for. She had even bought a new car, a reliable Honda CR-V, perfect for Seattle's rainy weather and for the occasional trips to the Cascade Mountains that Joseph adored. But professional success didn't fill every void. There were nights when Olivia lay in bed, always alone, never having gone out with anyone since David, and felt the weight of loneliness. Not loneliness in the sense of being alone. She had Joseph. She had her mother. She had close friends from her support group. But loneliness in the sense of partnership, of having someone to share victories and defeats with. Someone to say, "You did great today," or "It's going to be okay." She had built walls so high around her heart that sometimes she wondered if she'd ever be able to tear them down again. Dorothy noticed, of course. Mothers always do. One Sunday afternoon in May, while Joseph played in the backyard watching ants, his newest obsession, Dorothy brought it up. "Have you thought about dating?" Olivia nearly spit out her tea. "Mom, what?" "It's a legitimate question. You're 34, Livy. You're still young. You don't have to spend the rest of your life alone because of what that coward did." "I'm not alone," Olivia protested. "I have Joseph. I have my business. I have you. You know what I mean." Dorothy covered her daughter's hand with her own. "You deserve love. You deserve partnership. You deserve someone who sees how extraordinary you are." Olivia gently pulled her hand back. "Maybe someday, Mom, but not now. I'm not ready. And honestly, I don't know if I ever will be." What she didn't say, but both of them knew, was that David had broken something fundamental inside her. Not her capacity to love. She loved Joseph with a fierceness that astonished her every day. But her capacity to trust, to let herself be vulnerable, to believe that someone would stay when things got hard. So Olivia did what she always did when uncomfortable emotions surfaced. She buried herself in work. 2018, Seattle, Washington. Joseph had just turned 8, and Olivia often found herself amazed by the young boy he was becoming. He was in third grade at his inclusive school, and though he still faced challenges, social situations were hard. Changes in routine still caused anxiety. Loud noises still overwhelmed him. He was thriving in ways Olivia could never have imagined during that terrifying first year after his diagnosis. Joseph had discovered a passion for mathematics. Not just basic math, but complex patterns, sequences, logic. His teacher had begun giving him fifth-grade assignments because the third-grade material was too simple. He had a close friend now too, Marcus, a neurotypical boy in his class who shared his love for Legos and building. Their families often met for playdates, and Olivia's heart swelled each time she saw Joseph and Marcus constructing elaborate worlds together. Joseph explaining the engineering behind every piece, Marcus listening with genuine fascination. "You know," Marcus's mother Jennifer told Olivia one afternoon, "Marcus says Joseph is the smartest friend he has. He comes home and tells me everything he learns from him. Your son is special, Liv." Olivia blinked back tears. "Thank you. They're good for each other." But not everything was easy. Joseph still had hard days. There were days when the fluorescent lights at school were too much, when the cafeteria noise overwhelmed him, when an unexpected schedule change made him so anxious he couldn't function. On those days, the school called, and Olivia dropped everything to pick him up, bring him home, and create a calm, dark space where he could regulate himself again. She never resented those moments, never sighed with frustration or treated them as a burden. Joseph hadn't chosen to have a nervous system that processed the world differently. He needed understanding and accommodation, not judgment. But sometimes, on lonely nights, Olivia allowed herself to feel the exhaustion of being both mother and father, the exhaustion of being the only person in the entire world responsible for every decision, every crisis, every victory and setback. She never, not once, regretted having Joseph. He was the best part of her life. But she did mourn having to do it all alone. One night in October 2018, after a particularly difficult day when Joseph had a sensory meltdown at school and spent 2 hours at home crying and stimming to calm himself, Olivia sat in her home office and did something she hadn't done in years. She searched for David on Google. Her fingers trembled as she typed David Monson, Seattle. Several LinkedIn profiles appeared. She clicked on the one with his picture. Older now, grayer, but unmistakably him. According to his profile, he had left Seattle in 2013, moved to Portland, Oregon, worked as a sales director at a software company. No mention of family, no wedding photos, no children. Olivia stared at that picture for a long time, trying to feel something. Anger, hurt, even curiosity. But all she felt was nothing, like looking at the picture of a complete stranger. This man had once been her husband, had once slept beside her, had once made promises, had once helped raise Joseph, and now he was less than a memory, an absence, a blank space where a father should have been. Olivia closed the laptop, walked to Joseph's room, and stood quietly at the door watching him sleep. He lay on his side, clutching his favorite plush dinosaur, his chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. "You'll never know his love," she whispered. "And maybe that's for the best, because his love came with conditions. And you, my beautiful boy, deserve love without end. Love that stays. Love that fights." She promised herself that night she would never look for David again. He had made his choice, and she had made hers. And they were okay. More than okay. They were thriving. 2021, Seattle, Washington. The COVID-19 pandemic had changed the world, but in some ways, it had actually made life easier for Olivia and Joseph. Remote learning, though challenging for many children, turned out to be a blessing for Joseph. Without the sensory overload of the classroom, the lights, the sounds, the closeness of other kids, he flourished academically. His grades improved. His anxiety lessened. Olivia's business also adapted seamlessly to the virtual world. Spencer Resilience Consulting transitioned all of its workshops and coaching sessions to Zoom, and surprisingly, demand grew. In a world where everyone was grappling with trauma, uncertainty, and the need for resilience, Olivia's services were more relevant than ever. Her contract with the state of Washington had expanded. She was now developing mental health and resilience programs for frontline professionals, nurses, doctors, paramedics who faced secondary trauma every day during the pandemic. By 2021, Spencer Resilience Consulting had generated $1.2 million in revenue. Olivia Spencer, the woman who had once been left with $20,000 and an uncertain future 9 years earlier, now owned a thriving company, a paid-off home, solid investments, and financial security for the first time in her life. But more important than any financial success, she had Joseph. Joseph, now 11, was in 6th grade. He had developed a passionate interest in computer programming. He spent hours creating small games, understanding code logic in ways that even impressed his teachers. "Mom, look what I made," he called one Saturday afternoon, his eyes shining with excitement as he showed her a simple game he had coded, where a dinosaur jumped over obstacles. "Joseph, that's amazing." Olivia sat beside him, genuinely impressed. "How did you learn to do this?" "YouTube. And then I just got it. It makes sense in my head. Code is like patterns, you know? And I'm good with patterns." He was. Joseph saw the world in systems, patterns, logic. What was challenging socially became an incredible advantage in areas like math, science, and programming. Olivia often wondered what David would think if he could see the extraordinary son he had abandoned, if he would feel regret, if he would realize what he'd lost. But those thoughts were rare now. 9 years had passed. 9 years without a single word, a single call, a single sign that David cared, whether they were alive or dead. To Joseph, David simply didn't exist. Olivia had never lied when Joseph, around 5 or 6, began asking about his father. "Your dad left when you were very little," she had explained, keeping her voice neutral, factual. "He couldn't be the dad you needed. But you have me. You have Grandma Dorothy. And you have people who love you very much." Joseph had accepted that as naturally as he accepted that the sky was blue or that dinosaurs were extinct. It was simply a fact of his reality. He never asked about David again, never expressed sadness or curiosity. To him, family meant Olivia, Dorothy, and the circle of people who were truly there. And Olivia, she had finally begun to let the walls around her heart come down, just a little. In 2020, she had started dating again. Nothing serious, some dinners, a few connections that didn't go anywhere. But she was trying. She was opening herself to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she could trust again. In October 2021, she met James at a networking event in Seattle. He was a trauma therapist, 10 years older than her, divorced, with 2 grown daughters. They connected instantly over their shared passion for helping people heal. They went out a few times. He was kind, attentive, genuinely interested in Joseph. But Olivia found herself searching for flaws, for signs that he would run when things got hard. "You're sabotaging this," Dorothy said bluntly one Sunday over coffee. "James is a good man, but you're so scared of being hurt again that you're finding reasons to push him away." "Maybe," Olivia admitted. "Or maybe I'm just being realistic. I have Joseph. I have responsibilities. I can't risk bringing someone into our lives who might leave." "Vivi," Dorothy said softly, "David isn't every man. He was a coward. But there are good men in the world, men who stay. Your father stayed until the day he died, even when it got hard. James seems like one of those men." Olivia wanted to believe that, but the wound David had left was deep, infected, never fully healed. In the end, it was Joseph who made the decision. "Mom," he said one night after dinner, "do you like James?" Olivia was caught off guard. Yes, sweetheart. I do." "Why?" Joseph adjusted one of his toy cars on the table, not looking at her. "Because you smile differently when he calls. You smile with your eyes. I think he makes you happy. And I want you to be happy." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Her extraordinary son, who sometimes struggled to read emotions, had read her perfectly. "Thank you, my love," she whispered. "That means everything to me." But before she could decide what to do about James, before she could truly allow herself to try again, the phone rang. It was a November afternoon in 2021. Olivia was in her home office, working on a proposal for a new contract with the Washington State Department of Health. The number was unfamiliar, spoken area code. She almost didn't answer. But something, intuition, fate, or simple curiosity, made her press the green button. "Hello, Sarah. Oh, I'm sorry, Olivia. Olivia Spencer?" The voice was that of an older woman, shaky, desperate. "Yes, this is Olivia. Who's speaking?" There was a pause, a deep, trembling breath. "This is Margaret. Margaret Monson, David's mother." Olivia's world stopped turning. 9 years. 9 years of absolute silence. And now this. "What do you want?" Olivia asked, her voice colder than ice. "I know I have no right to call. I know that." But the woman's voice broke. "He's in a hospital in Spokane. There was an accident. A terrible accident. He's paralyzed from the waist down. And he's giving up. He's depressed, refusing treatment, refusing physical therapy. The doctors say if he doesn't fight, if he doesn't want to live." Olivia gripped the phone so tightly her fingers went white. "And why exactly are you calling me?" "Because," Margaret sobbed, "because the only thing he says, the only thing he repeats when he's conscious, is your names. Olivia and Joseph. He keeps saying, 'I need to see my son. I need to see Olivia.'" Silence. A silence so deep Olivia could hear her own heartbeat. "He abandoned Joseph when he was 2, she finally said, each word cutting like shards of glass. "He ran when things got hard. He chose not to be a father. He has no right to ask for anything now. I know. I know what he did was unforgivable. I've told him that thousands of times over the years. But Olivia," Margaret's voice was pure desperation, "he's dying. Not physically, but inside. He's given up. And I know I have no right to ask, but you're his only hope." Olivia hung up. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. 9 years of healing, rebuilding, moving on. And with one phone call, it all threatened to collapse. She sat there for long minutes, staring at the wall, trying to process it all. David was alive, paralyzed, depressed, giving up on life. And somehow, after 9 years of absence, a part of him wanted to see the son he had abandoned. The anger came first. Burning, righteous anger. How dare he? How dare he disappear for 9 years and then expect her to bring Joseph, her son, who had grown up without a father, to the hospital bed of a stranger? But then another emotion crept in, more complex, more confusing, pity, and perhaps, buried deep within her, the faintest echo of the love she had once felt for that man. Olivia didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, caught between justified rage and something she didn't want to name: forgiveness. The next 3 days were a spiral of confusion and anguish. Olivia didn't tell anyone about the call. Not Dorothy, not James, and certainly not Joseph. She kept it inside her like a toxic secret, burning a hole in her chest. Margaret called twice more. Olivia didn't answer. She began researching obsessively. She found news articles about the accident. David had been driving on Interstate 90 near Spokane in August 2021. 3 months earlier, a truck had lost control in the rain and sideswiped David's car. He survived, but his spinal cord was severely damaged, paralyzed from the waist down. Prognosis uncertain, but with intensive physical therapy and surgeries, there was a possibility of partial recovery. But David had refused treatment, refused therapy. He'd sunk into a deep depression. According to one of the articles, he was in a specialized rehabilitation center in Spokane, but doctors were considering transferring him to psychiatric care if he continued refusing help. Olivia read all of it and felt nothing. Then everything. Then nothing again. On the 4th night, Dorothy showed up unannounced. A mother always knows. "Okay," Dorothy said, stepping through the door with a bag of Thai food from Olivia's favorite restaurant. "Are you going to tell me what's going on? Or do I have to drag it out of you?" Olivia broke down. She told her everything. The call, Margaret, the accident, the paralysis, the impossible request. Dorothy listened in silence, her expression growing darker with every word. "That cowardly son of a bitch," she finally said when Olivia finished. "That damn coward has the nerve to." "I know, Mom. You don't owe him anything. Nothing. I know. Joseph doesn't even know him. He has no memories of him. Bringing him into this would be." "I know." Olivia repeated, her voice cracking. I know all that. But what? Olivia covered her face with her hands. But what if I carry this to my grave? What if he dies, and I never give Joseph the chance to meet his biological father? What if one day Joseph asks me why I didn't? Joseph would never ask that, Dorothy cut in firmly. Because Joseph has you, and you've been mother and father perfectly. You don't owe David or Joseph that reunion. Maybe not, Olivia whispered, but maybe I owe it to myself. Dorothy paused. What do you mean? Olivia finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. For 9 years, I've carried anger. Anger that protected me, that drove me, that made me strong. But Mom, I'm so tired of carrying it. I'm so tired of David Monson, who's been gone for nearly a decade, still having power over my emotions. And maybe the only way to finally be free is to face him. Not for him, for me. Dorothy studied her daughter for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. If you do this, she said softly, I'm going with you. And we'll protect Joseph above everything else. He comes first. Always. Always, Olivia agreed. But she still hadn't truly made the decision. Not yet. Once again, it was Joseph who brought clarity. On Saturday morning, Olivia was in the kitchen making pancakes, their Saturday tradition. Joseph sat at the table, drawing one of his complex math patterns in his notebook. Mom, he said suddenly, without looking up, you've been sad lately. Olivia froze. What makes you say that, sweetheart? You sigh more, and you stare into space sometimes, and you're not sleeping well. I hear you walking at night. Her extraordinary son, he struggled with subtle social cues, but knew her to her core. Olivia turned off the stove and sat down at the table with him. Joseph, can I ask you a hypothetical question? He finally looked up, his eyes meeting hers for a brief moment before darting away. Okay, if there was a chance for you to meet your biological father, would you want to? Joseph tilted his head, thinking. His brain worked differently, processing questions deeply before responding. He's the one who left when I was little, he finally asked. Yes. Why did he leave? Olivia chose her words carefully. He got scared. When you were diagnosed with autism, he didn't understand that you weren't something to be fixed. He wasn't strong enough to be your dad. So he left. Joseph nodded slowly. That was wrong. It was. But, Joseph continued, his logic flawless even at 11. People can change. People can grow. You always tell me that when I make mistakes, that mistakes don't define me if I learn from them. Olivia felt tears sting her eyes. That's true. Then, Joseph said simply, maybe he learned, or maybe he didn't, but maybe it's worth finding out. If you think so, I trust you, Mom. And that was it. That simple, complete trust was what finally made Olivia's decision for her. She called Margaret that afternoon. I'll go, she said when Margaret answered, skipping any preamble. But there are rules. I go first, alone. I'll see him, assess the situation. If and when I decide it's appropriate, maybe I'll bring Joseph. Maybe. But it happens on my time, on my terms. Understood? Yes, Margaret sobbed. Yes. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you. Olivia booked a flight to Spokane for Monday. 2 days to prepare. 2 days to gather courage. She told James that night over the phone, do you want me to come with you? He offered immediately. No, Olivia said softly. This is something I have to do alone. But thank you for offering, for supporting me. Always, he said simply. And then Sunday came, the last day before she would face the man who had haunted 9 years of her life. Olivia spent the day with Joseph. They went to Discovery Park, walked the trails, watched the waters of Puget Sound. Joseph collected interesting rocks, arranging them by size and color. Olivia just watched him, soaking in every moment. I'm flying to Spokane tomorrow, she finally said as they sat on a bench, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. To see him, Joseph asked. To see him. Okay. Joseph continued arranging his rocks. Then, very quietly, if he's nice, you can tell him about my code project. I think he'd think it's cool. Olivia's heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same moment. Her extraordinary son, offering an olive branch to a man who didn't deserve even a leaf. I'll tell him, she promised. I'll tell him all about the incredible boy you've become. Monday, November 22nd, 2021. The flight from Seattle to Spokane was short. Only 45 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Olivia watched out the window as the Cascade Mountains unfolded below, trying to calm the thoughts racing through her mind. What would she say? What would he be like? Would there be real remorse or just self-pity? And more importantly, what would this visit do to her? To the fragile peace she had built so carefully over 9 years? Margaret was waiting for her at the airport. Olivia recognized her immediately, although 9 years had added more lines to the woman's face, more gray to her hair. She looked smaller somehow, as if the weight of her son's mistakes had physically diminished her. Olivia, Margaret said, her voice full of gratitude and shame. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Olivia interrupted, not rudely but firmly. I haven't decided anything. The drive to the Spokane Rehabilitation Center was made in awkward silence. Margaret tried several times to start conversations, questions about Joseph, about how Olivia was, updates on David, but Olivia answered in monosyllables. She wasn't ready. Not yet. The Rehabilitation Center was a modern, depressingly institutional building on the outskirts of Spokane. Shiny linoleum floors, walls in neutral beige tones, that unmistakable hospital smell that turned Olivia's stomach. He's in room 307, Margaret said as they reached the 3rd floor. I told him you were coming. He hasn't said much. He hasn't said much of anything for weeks. They walked down the corridor. Each step felt impossible. Olivia's legs were leaden. They stopped in front of door 307. Do you want me to come in with you? Margaret asked. No, Olivia took a deep breath. I'll do this alone. Margaret nodded and moved away to give her privacy. Olivia stood there, her hand on the cold doorknob, preparing herself. 9 years. 9 years of anger, hurt, rebuilding. And now she was seconds away from seeing the man who had caused so much of her pain. She turned the knob. The room was small, Spartan. A bed, a chair, a window overlooking the parking lot. And in the bed, the shadow of a man she had once loved. David Monson was unrecognizable. The vibrant man she had known, always well-dressed, confident, full of life, was gone. In his place was a body too thin, pale skin, sunken eyes ringed with dark circles. His hair, which had been just starting to gray when he left, was now almost completely white. He looked 60, not 42. He was looking out the window when she entered, not immediately noticing her presence. David, Olivia said, her voice surprisingly steady. He turned his head slowly, and when his eyes met hers, something passed over his face. Shock, disbelief, and then something that broke Olivia's heart despite all her anger. Absolute shame. Liv, he whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. You really came. I'm here, she said, staying near the door, keeping her distance. Your mother called. Said that you were giving up. David gave a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. Giving up. That's one way to put it. Silence fell between them like a heavy curtain. Olivia studied him, the folded wheelchair propped against the wall, the grab bars by the bed, the legs under the thin blanket, motionless, useless. The accident was 3 months ago, David finally said when the silence became unbearable. Truck on the I-90. Rain. It happened so fast. I barely remember. 1 minute I was driving, the next I was waking up in the hospital, unable to feel my legs. And the doctors say there's a chance of recovery. With physical therapy. With surgeries, Olivia said, repeating what Margaret had told her. Maybe. 5% chance of regaining some movement. 10% chance of walking again with supports. But it requires years of work. Pain. Trying. He looked at his hands. And I thought, what for? Why fight? Your mother is out there, heartbroken, worried you'll die, Olivia said, her voice gaining an edge. Isn't that reason enough? David met her eyes. Not when I lost everything that mattered 9 years ago. Anger rose hot and fast in Olivia's chest. You didn't lose anything. You quit. You chose to leave. Don't make me pretend we were taken from you. You're right. His voice was flat, defeated. I'm a coward. Always was. And now I'm a broken, useless coward, paralyzed. Stop the self-pity, Olivia said sharply. You want to know what's really hard? Raising an autistic child alone. Working 3 jobs while paying for therapies. Holding your child through sensory meltdowns at 3 in the morning when you haven't slept for days. Building a whole life from scratch after being abandoned by the man who promised to stay forever. That's hard, David. Physical rehab? That's just hard work. And you've made hard choices before. You chose to leave. Her words came out like knives, and Olivia saw them hit. David flinched, tears welling in his eyes. How is he? David asked softly. Joseph. How is he? Olivia felt her defenses waver. He's extraordinary. He's in 6th grade. Loves math, computer programming, dinosaurs. He's brilliant, David. Brilliant in ways you never imagined possible because you saw him as broken instead of different. I was ignorant, David whispered. I didn't understand. I was so afraid. Fear is not an excuse for abandoning your family. I know. Tears ran freely down David's face now. I know that. Not a day goes by that I don't hate myself for what I did. Not an hour. I threw away everything that mattered because I was too weak to face my own fears. Then why didn't you come back? Olivia demanded, her own voice breaking now. When you realized you'd made a mistake, why didn't you come back? Why didn't you fight for us? Because, David said, his voice barely a whisper. I thought you'd be better off without me. That Joseph would be healthier without a father who couldn't look at him, without seeing a diagnosis instead of a child. That you'd rebuild your life and be happier. And the more time passed, the more impossible it seemed to come back. How could I show up after a year? 2 years? 5 years? How could I expect forgiveness? You can't, Olivia said harshly. You don't get to expect forgiveness just because you're broken now and need something from us. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. David wiped his tears with trembling hands. When my mother said she was going to call you, I told her not to. I have no right to ask for anything, but she was desperate. And I'm dying. Not physically, but inside. And the only thing that keeps me awake at night, the only thing that makes me think maybe it's worth fighting, is the impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, I could meet my son before I die. Not as his father. I'm not worthy of that title. But as the stranger who feels deeply. As someone who wants to tell him that he is loved, even though I didn't earn the right to say it. Olivia stood there, tears streaming down her own face now, torn between the righteous anger she had carried for 9 years and something softer, more complicated. Compassion, the recognition that the man before her was genuinely broken, not only physically but spiritually. Joseph doesn't remember you, she finally said. He has no memories. I never spoke ill of you to him, but I also never created a fantasy. He knows you left when he was little because you were scared. He knows I raised him alone, and he's okay with that. He's happy, David. He has a good life. I'm glad to hear that. Truly glad. David smiled through his tears. You always were the strong one. I always knew that. You didn't need me. But I wanted you, Olivia whispered, finally letting the truth out. I didn't need you to survive, but I wanted you to share life, to celebrate wins and face losses together. And when you left, you didn't just abandon Joseph. You abandoned me too. I know, and that's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life, however long or short it is. David looked at his useless hands. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect Joseph to want to know me. But if you could just tell him that I'm sorry, that the mistake was mine, never his, that he's perfect exactly as he is, maybe that would be enough. Olivia stood there for long moments, looking at this broken man, feeling the weight of 9 years of anger slowly begin to loosen. She did not forgive him. Not fully. Not yet. Maybe never. But she saw his remorse. She saw his suffering. And a part of her, the part that had spent years teaching others about resilience, growth, redemption, recognized that holding on to rage forever only hurt herself, not him. "I'll think about it," she finally said. "About bringing Joseph. But David, understand this. If I do, it's not for you. It's for him. So he can make his own decisions about who you are and whether he wants you in his life in any way." "I understand. And Liv," David called as she turned to leave. "Thank you. For coming. For listening. For being the incredible person you always were." Olivia didn't answer. She simply left, closing the door softly behind her. In the hallway, Margaret waited, her face anxious. "How is he?" she asked. "Broken," Olivia said simply. "In every possible way." She walked down the corridor, descended the stairs. She needed motion, needed air, and went out to the parking lot where Spokane's November cold hit her like a slap. Olivia stood there, breathing deeply, trying to process the storm of emotions whirling inside her. Anger, sadness, pity, and something she hadn't expected. A strange sense of closure beginning to form. She pulled out her phone and called Dorothy. "Mom," she said when Dorothy answered. "I saw him. And I don't know what to feel. He is truly remorseful, truly broken, and I'm thinking about bringing Joseph." There was a long pause. "Are you sure?" "No," Olivia admitted. "But Joseph said something yesterday. He said people can change, that mistakes don't define someone if they learn from them. And maybe he's right. Maybe David doesn't deserve forgiveness. But maybe Joseph deserves the chance to decide that for himself." "So you'll bring him?" Olivia looked back at the building, at the third-floor window where David sat, a shadow of the man who had lost everything through his own cowardice. "I will bring him," she said, "but on my terms, in my time." Olivia returned to Seattle that night, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. She had seen David. She had faced the ghost that had haunted 9 years of her life. And now she had to decide how and when to introduce that ghost to Joseph. Dorothy was waiting at home. Joseph was already asleep. It was late when Olivia arrived from the airport. "Tell me everything," Dorothy demanded, pouring chamomile tea for both of them, a ritual they had shared through every difficult moment in Olivia's life. Olivia told her about David, about the shame in his eyes, about his broken body and even more broken spirit, about the tears, the remorse, and the impossible desire to meet the son he had abandoned. "Do you believe him?" Dorothy asked when Olivia finished. "That the regret is real?" "Yes," Olivia said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I believe him. He is genuinely devastated by what he did. But Mom, regret doesn't undo damage. It doesn't give back 9 years. It doesn't erase the trauma of being abandoned." "No, it doesn't erase it." Dorothy covered her daughter's hand with hers. "But maybe it's not about him. Maybe it's about giving Joseph complete information so he can make his own choices about his biological father." "That's what I'm thinking. But how do I prepare an 11-year-old to meet the father who abandoned him? How do I do that without hurting him?" "You do what you've always done," Dorothy said gently. "You're honest. You give him context, and you let him lead." In the days that followed, Olivia did exactly that. On Tuesday night, after dinner, she sat with Joseph in their living room. She had carefully prepared what she would say, consulted Joseph's therapist, and even spoken with James, who offered therapeutic guidance on how to approach difficult conversations with children. "Joseph, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something important," Olivia began. Joseph was working on a 1,000-piece puzzle, his current self-regulation activity. He didn't stop working, but she knew he was listening. He always listened best when his hands were busy. "Is it about your biological father?" Joseph's perception never failed to amaze her. "Yes, it is. You went to see him yesterday." "I did." "How is he?" Olivia chose her words carefully. "He is hurt, sweetheart. He was in a car accident, and now he's in a wheelchair. And he's very sad. Not just about the accident, but about the choices he made long ago." Joseph fit one piece, then another. "Does he feel bad for leaving?" "He does. He told me the biggest mistake of his life was leaving you and me. He was scared and confused, but that was no excuse." "It wasn't," Joseph agreed, his logic clear and simple. He should have stayed. Parents stay, even when it's hard. You are absolutely right. Olivia took a deep breath. He asked if he could meet you. Not as your father. He knows he hasn't earned that title, but as someone who wants to tell you he's sorry directly. Joseph paused from the puzzle. He looked at the pieces, his mind clearly processing. If I meet him, he finally said, will he want me to act differently? Will he want me to be not autistic? Olivia's heart broke. No, my love. No. He knows you're autistic, and he specifically told me to tell you that you are perfect just as you are. But he left because I'm autistic. You said that. I did, and it was true. But Joseph, sometimes adults make terrible mistakes out of fear and ignorance. He was wrong, completely wrong, but he says he understands that now. Joseph returned to the puzzle, his hands working faster now, a sign he was processing difficult emotions. Do you want me to go? He asked. It's not about what I want, Olivia said gently. It's about what you want. There's no right or wrong answer. If you don't want to meet him, that's completely fine. If you do, that's fine too. I will support any decision you make. Silence. The click of puzzle pieces fitting together, seconds stretching like hours. Finally, Joseph spoke. I have questions only he can answer. Like what? Like why he gave me this name. Joseph. What it means. Why he chose it. He fit another piece. And I want to tell him about my coding project. You said he worked with technology. Maybe he'll understand. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Her extraordinary son, offering grace where none was owed, seeking connection where there had only been abandonment. Then we will, she said softly. But Joseph, some rules. If at any time you want to leave, we leave. If you don't like him, you don't have to see him again. And no matter what happens, I am always by your side. Always. Joseph finally looked up, his eyes meeting hers for a brief moment. I know, Mama. You always have been. Olivia called Margaret that night. I'm bringing Joseph, she said. But there are conditions. Anything, Margaret said quickly. First, David does not act as a father. He is an acquaintance. Someone Joseph is meeting, not someone with parental rights or expectations. Understood. Second, the visit will be short. 30 minutes max for the first time. Joseph can get overwhelmed in hospital environments, and I will not force him to stay if he is uncomfortable. Of course. Third, David needs to understand this is not forgiveness. It is not reconciliation. It is simply giving Joseph information and allowing him to make his own decisions about whether he wants any kind of relationship with his biological father in the future. I'll make that clear to him, Margaret promised. Olivia, thank you. This means more than you can imagine. It's not for you or David, Olivia said firmly. It's for Joseph. Only for Joseph. Olivia scheduled the visit for the following Saturday, November 27th. Thanksgiving had passed on Thursday. Olivia and Joseph had spent it quietly with Dorothy in Tacoma, without mentioning the upcoming trip. But now it was Friday night, and tomorrow they would drive to Spokane. Olivia didn't sleep much. She stayed awake, worrying. What if David said the wrong thing? What if Joseph came away hurt? What if it reopened wounds she had spent 9 years trying to heal? But then she remembered Joseph's words. I trust you, Mama. And she realized she needed to trust herself too. Trust that she had raised a boy strong enough to face this. Trust that she would be there to catch him if he fell. And trust that perhaps, just perhaps, there was room for something complicated and imperfect that lay between forgiveness and anger. Something that looked like compassion. Something that looked like letting go. Saturday, November 27th, 2021. The drive from Seattle to Spokane took about 4.5 hours. Olivia had decided to drive instead of fly. Joseph always calmed down during long car rides, and she needed time to prepare him. Dorothy had offered to come along, but Olivia declined. This was something she and Joseph needed to do together, just the two of them. They left early, at 7 in the morning, the winter sun just beginning to lighten the sky over Seattle. Joseph was in the back seat with his noise-canceling headphones on, listening to his playlist of instrumental music that helped him process. As they drove east, passing Snoqualmie Pass, The Cascade Mountains rose around them in snowy majesty. The world was quiet, serene, as if holding its breath. "Mama," Joseph said through the car intercom. She had set it up so he could speak without taking off his headphones. "I'm nervous." "I'm nervous too, sweetheart," Olivia admitted. "Being nervous is normal. It's okay to be nervous." "What if he doesn't like me?" The question cut Olivia like a blade. "Joseph, look at me in the rearview mirror." He looked up, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "There's nothing about you that isn't lovable. You're smart, kind, funny, interesting. If David can't see that, that's his problem, not yours. And if at any point he makes you feel anything less than amazing, we leave immediately. Understand?" "Understand." Joseph looked back out the window. "But Mama, and if I like him, that's okay too." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, that's okay too." They arrived in Spokane around 11:30. Olivia had booked a hotel room. She wanted a safe place to take Joseph if he became overwhelmed, a place to stay overnight if needed before the long drive back. After checking in and dropping off their things, Olivia knelt before Joseph in the hotel room. "Last chance to change your mind," she said. "If you don't want to do this, we don't have to." Joseph took a deep breath, his hands lightly fluttering at his sides, a small stem indicating he was processing. "No, I want to go. I have questions." "Okay then." Olivia kissed his forehead. "Let's go." The drive to the rehabilitation center was short, but every block felt like an eternity. Olivia parked, turned off the car, and paused for a moment, gathering courage. "Ready?" she asked Joseph. "Ready," he replied, though his hands fluttered faster now. They entered together, mother and son, about to face the man who had abandoned them both. Margaret waited for them in the lobby. She looked at Joseph as if seeing a ghost, which, in a way, he was. Joseph was a perfect blend of Olivia and David. Olivia's brown hair, David's blue eyes, David's facial structure, but Olivia's smile. "Joseph," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "You're so big, so beautiful." Joseph recoiled slightly, uncomfortable with her emotional intensity. "Margaret," Olivia said firmly, "let's keep this calm, okay? Joseph doesn't know you. He needs space." Of course. "Sorry." Margaret wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. "David is waiting. He's nervous too." They went up to the third floor. Joseph held Olivia's hand tightly, his body tense but resolute. They stopped in front of room 307. Olivia knelt again, getting down to Joseph's eye level. "Remember the rules? I can leave anytime. You stay with me. He's not my dad, he's just someone." "Exactly." Olivia squeezed his hands. "I love you so much." "I love you too, Mama." Olivia stood, took a deep breath, and knocked on the door. "Come in," came David's tense, hesitant voice. Olivia opened the door. David was seated in his wheelchair this time, not in bed. He had cleaned up, hair combed, beard shaved, clothes tidy. It was clear he had made an effort, but his eyes were fixed on Joseph, and the expression on his face was pure, disconcerting wonder mixed with pain. "Hi," David said softly. "You must be Joseph." Joseph stayed close to Olivia, one hand still holding hers, the other subtly fluttering at his side. He didn't look directly at David. He rarely made eye contact with strangers, but Olivia knew he was absorbing every detail. "Hi," Joseph replied, his voice small. Silence fell, heavy and uncomfortable. Olivia was about to intervene when Joseph spoke again. "You're my biological dad?" Joseph's bluntness, a feature of his neurodivergence, cut through any small talk someone might have tried. "I am," David said, his voice breaking slightly. "Though I haven't earned the right to be called your dad. I am. I am the man who should have been your father, but wasn't strong enough to try." Joseph processed this. "Because you got scared when I was diagnosed with autism." "Yes, because I was scared and stupid and thought autism was something frightening instead of just a different way your brain works." "That was stupid," Joseph agreed, and Olivia had to suppress something between a laugh and a sob. David laughed wetly. "It was very stupid. Mama told me you want to say you're sorry." "I do," Joseph, I am sorry. More than words can express. I'm sorry I didn't stay. I'm sorry I missed your whole life. I'm sorry I caused pain to your mother and to you. Joseph tilted his head, thinking, Mama says apologies need to come with change. Saying sorry doesn't mean anything if you don't learn and grow. Your mother is absolutely right. She always has been. David glanced at Olivia briefly, gratitude in his eyes. And I've learned. Too late to matter, but I've learned. I've learned that love means staying, especially when it's hard. I've learned that different is not less. I've learned I wasted the chance to know what I'm sure is an extraordinary person. I am pretty extraordinary, Joseph said, and this time Olivia laughed despite her tears. His lack of false modesty, another autistic trait, was one of her favorite qualities. David laughed too, tears streaming down his face. I'm sure you are. Your mother told me about how good you are at math and programming. I am. I'm building a game where a Spinosaurus has to navigate through water obstacles while collecting fish. It's based on real paleontological research on Spinosaurus behavior. That sounds amazing. Could you tell me about it? And so, with Joseph leading the way, the tension in the room began to ease. Joseph told David about his project, gesturing with his hands, his eyes shining with passion as he explained the code, game logic, and paleontological accuracy. David listened attentively, asking genuine questions, showing real interest. Olivia watched amazed as her son and the man who should have been his father navigated this impossible moment with more grace than she had imagined possible. After about 15 minutes, Joseph paused. Can I ask a question? Of course. Anything. Why did you name me Joseph? David blinked, surprised by the question. You want to know about your name? Yes. Names have meaning. I want to know why mine. David looked at Olivia, then back at Joseph. We named you after my grandfather, Joseph Monson. He raised my mother alone after my grandmother died young. He was the strongest, kindest man I ever knew. Worked 3 jobs to give my mother a good life. Never complained. Never gave up. When you were born, I held you and thought, I hope he's strong like Grandpa Joe. So we named you Joseph. That's ironic, Joseph observed, his sharp logic cutting through. Because you gave up, so I have the name of a strong man, but you weren't strong. The silence that followed was sharp. You're absolutely right, David finally said, his voice thick. You deserved a father like Grandpa Joe. Instead, you got me. And I can't change that. But you have your mother, and she's 10 times stronger than anyone I've ever known, including Grandpa Joe. Joseph looked at Olivia, and something passed between them. Love, gratitude, connection that transcended words. I know, Joseph said. She's the strongest person in the world. They stayed for another 10 minutes. Joseph asked more questions about David's family, his work, the accident. David answered everything honestly, without minimizing or making excuses. When Joseph began to stim more frequently, Olivia recognized the signs of imminent sensory overload. I think we need to go, she said gently. Of course. David looked at Joseph. Joseph, thank you for coming, for giving me the chance to meet you, even though I didn't deserve it. You are incredible, and whatever path your life takes, I know it will be extraordinary. Joseph nodded. Then, unexpectedly, he took a step toward David. You should do the physiotherapy, he said. Mama says 5% chance. And if Grandpa Joe didn't give up, maybe you shouldn't give up either, even if it's hard. David looked at this 11-year-old boy offering wisdom he didn't deserve, and something in him broke and rebuilt at the same time. You're right, he whispered. You're absolutely right. Joseph nodded, satisfied that the logic of his argument had been accepted, and then returned to Olivia's side. Can we go now? He asked. I'm getting tired. Of course, my love. As they reached the door, David called one last time. Liv. Olivia. She turned. Thank you for raising him so well, for being everything I wasn't, for giving him the chance to know me even when I didn't deserve it. I will never forget this. Olivia didn't respond immediately. She looked at this broken man, this ghost from her past, and felt something release in her chest. Not complete forgiveness, That would take time, perhaps a lifetime, but the beginning of something, the possibility of letting go. Do the physiotherapy, David, she finally said. Fight, if not for yourself, then to honor the name you gave our son. And then she left, Joseph safe at her side, leaving David behind. On the drive back to the hotel, Joseph remained silent for long minutes, processing. Olivia gave him space, knowing he needed time to organize his thoughts, to categorize this new and complex experience. Finally, as they parked at the hotel, Joseph spoke. I don't know how I feel about him. That's completely normal, Olivia said, turning in her seat to look at him. You don't have to know how you feel yet. Feelings are complicated. He seemed sad and sorry, but being sorry doesn't undo what he did. No, it doesn't. But, Joseph continued, his brow furrowed in concentration. He listened when I spoke, and he didn't act like I was weird or wrong for being autistic. He just listened. He listened, and I think he really cared about what you had to say. Do you think he'll do the physiotherapy? Olivia considered. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so, but that's a choice he has to make himself. Joseph nodded, then said something that completely surprised Olivia. I'd like to see him again. Not now, but maybe eventually, if he does the physiotherapy. If he fights, because if he fights, that means he's learned. And if he's learned, maybe it's worth getting to know him more. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Her extraordinary son, offering conditional redemption, grace with limits, love with wisdom. We can do that, she said softly. If that's what you want, we can do that. They stayed in Spokane that night, ordering room service and watching Joseph's favorite film, a marathon of dinosaur documentaries he had seen 1,000 times, but never tired of. Olivia watched her son, marveling at his resilience, his ability to face something so emotionally complex and come out the other side still whole, still himself. She also thought of David, of the brokenness in him, of the genuine remorse, and of Joseph's words about giving someone a chance if they proved they had learned. Perhaps her son was teaching her about forgiveness in the way she had spent years teaching him about other things. They drove back to Seattle on Sunday, the winter landscape of Washington unfolding around them in shades of gray and white. When they arrived home, Dorothy was waiting with a hot dinner and warm hugs. How was it? She asked, her eyes searching Olivia's face for signs of damage. It was okay, Olivia said, surprising herself. It was hard, but okay. Grandma, Joseph said, dropping his backpack on the floor. I met my biological dad and told him to do physiotherapy because 5% is still a chance. Dorothy looked at Olivia, eyebrows raised. Our son is wise, Olivia said simply. He always has been, Dorothy agreed, pulling Joseph into a hug that he tolerated for exactly 7 seconds before pulling away, his typical maximum hug duration. That night, after putting Joseph to bed, Olivia sat in her study and did something she hadn't done in years. She wrote about David, not with anger or resentment, but with clear honesty. She wrote about the abandonment, the betrayal, the pain, but also about the broken man she had seen in Spokane, the genuine remorse, and the possibility, just the possibility, of redemption. She wrote until her hands ached, until all the complex emotions were on the page, out of her head, where she could see them clearly. And when she finished, she realized something. She was beginning to let go. Not fully forgiving, not forgetting, but releasing the absolute death she had held around her heart regarding David for 9 years. He was alive, broken but alive. And maybe, just maybe, there was space in the world for him to exist again, not as a central part of their lives, but as a peripheral presence Joseph could choose to know or not as he grew. 3 days later, on Wednesday, Margaret called. Olivia, her voice full of emotion. He started physiotherapy. Monday morning, the day after your visit, he called the therapists and said he was ready to try. He's fighting, Olivia. He's really fighting. Olivia felt something warm spread through her chest. Relief, perhaps. Or hope. That's good, she said. That's really good. He said Joseph gave him a reason, that if an 11-year-old boy could be brave enough to meet the father who abandoned him, Then he could be brave enough to fight for his recovery. Olivia didn't tell Joseph immediately. She wanted to wait, to see if David would continue, if the motivation would last beyond the first difficult days. But David did continue. Margaret sent weekly updates. David was doing physiotherapy 5 days a week, brutal, painful sessions that left him exhausted and crying. But he didn't give up. He also began therapy for his depression. He was on medication, working with a psychiatrist, attending support groups for people with spinal cord injuries. By January 2022, 2 months after the visit, David could sit without support for 15 minutes. In February, he could stand with support bars for 30 seconds. In March, he took his first assisted steps. And through it all, Olivia kept Joseph informed, letting him decide how involved he wanted to be. Joseph regularly asked, "How's his physiotherapy going? Did he manage to stand longer? Do the doctors think he'll walk?" Joseph's genuine concern for this man he barely knew touched Olivia deeply. In April 2022, Joseph made a request. "Mama, I'd like to talk to him. Not visit yet, but maybe a video call." Olivia arranged it through Margaret. The following Saturday, Joseph and David had their first Zoom conversation. Olivia stayed nearby but gave them space, observing from a distance as her son spoke with his biological father about programming, dinosaurs, and David's physiotherapy progress. "I took 4 steps with the walker today," David said, his face lighting up with pride. 4 full steps. "That's a 300% improvement from last month," Joseph noted, his mathematical mind calculating instantly. "Statistically significant." David laughed, a sound Olivia hadn't heard in over a decade. "You sound like my physiotherapists. They love data too." They talked for 20 minutes, the maximum social concentration span for Joseph in video calls, and then Joseph waved goodbye, immediately returning to his coding project. But Olivia saw something on Joseph's face during that call. Something like connection. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of something. The possibility of something. Over the following months, these calls became regular. Every 2 weeks, then every week. Joseph showed David his projects. David shared his progress. They discovered shared interests. They both loved Star Trek. They both had logical minds that understood systems and patterns. And slowly, very slowly, a relationship began to form. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't what it could have been if David had stayed. But it was something. Something real. Something being built on a foundation of honesty and earned effort. Olivia watched all of this with mixed feelings. Pride in Joseph for his generosity of spirit. Cautious hope that maybe David had truly changed. And lingering sadness for what was lost, for the years that could never be recovered. But above all, she felt peace. Peace in doing what was right for Joseph. Peace in honoring the extraordinary person he was, allowing him to make his own choices about relationships, forgiveness, and redemption. In July 2022, 8 months after that first visit, David called Olivia directly, not through Margaret, but himself. "Liv." His voice was nervous but determined. "I know this is a lot to ask, but I wanted you to know. Next week, I'm going to try to walk without assistance. Just with a cane. My physiotherapists think I'm ready, and I wanted to know if Joseph would like to be there. Via video, I mean. I know asking you to come to Spokane is too much, but..." Olivia processed the request. It was significant, vulnerable. David was asking Joseph to witness a crucial moment, risking failure in front of his son. "I'll ask him," she said. "But David, whatever his answer, I'm proud of you. For the work you've done. For the fight." There was a long pause, then a choked voice. "That means more than you know. Thank you, Liv." Olivia asked Joseph that night. "He wants you to watch him try to walk without assistance. Do you want to be there?" "Via video." "Yes. He worked hard. He deserves someone to watch." And so, on Tuesday, July 19th, 2022, Olivia held the tablet while Joseph watched via FaceTime as David, surrounded by his physiotherapists and Margaret crying in the corner, stood for the first time in almost a year without assistance. He wobbled, trembled. Sweat ran down his face with the effort. Then, very slowly, he lifted one leg, put the other in front. 1 step, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 full steps before his physiotherapists caught him, guided him back to the wheelchair, all clapping and crying. David looked at the camera, tears streaming down his face, and said, "Joseph, thank you. Thank you for giving me a reason to fight." Joseph, never comfortable with intense emotion, simply nodded. "Good job. 5 steps is significant. Keep practicing." And then he logged off, returning to his computer game as if he hadn't just witnessed a miracle. But Olivia saw. She saw the small smile on Joseph's face. She saw the pride in his eyes. Her son was healing something she hadn't even realized was broken in him. The absence of a father hadn't been something Joseph had complained about, but perhaps, just perhaps, filling that space with something, even imperfect, was something he needed more than anyone realized. And perhaps, just perhaps, Olivia was also healing, letting go of anger, opening space for something new. Seattle, Washington, October 2022. 15 months had passed since that first visit to the hospital in Spokane. Olivia was in her office downtown Seattle, on the 18th floor of a modern building overlooking Puget Sound. Spencer Resilience Consulting had grown beyond her most ambitious dreams. She now had a team of 12 consultants, contracts with 3 different states, and had just signed a $2.3 million deal with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to develop a national resilience training program for mental health professionals. Her phone rang. It was her publicist, Karen. "Olivia," TEDx confirmed. "You're speaking at TEDx Seattle in January. The topic is perfect for you. Rebuilding from the ruins." Olivia felt a wave of emotion. TEDx. It was the ultimate validation that her story, her journey, her work mattered on a national scale. "Karen, that's amazing. And there's more. Harvard Business Review wants to do a profile on you, turning personal trauma into a business empire. It comes out in December." When she hung up, Olivia spun her chair to look out the window at the city that had been both her battlefield and her triumph. She had made it, against all odds. She had turned the worst thing that ever happened to her into her greatest strength. But professional success wasn't the only thing flourishing. James had moved into her Magnolia home in August. They were building something slow and careful, but real. He was patient with her walls, gentle with Joseph. And for the first time in over a decade, Olivia was allowing herself to imagine a future with partnership, with love, with trust. And Joseph. Joseph was thriving in ways that took Olivia's breath away. Now 12 years old, in 7th grade, he had joined the school robotics team, and their team had won the regional competition. He had a small but solid group of friends, other nerdy boys who loved coding and gaming. His social anxiety had decreased with ongoing therapy and maturity. And his relationship with David, that was the sweetest surprise of all. They were now talking via video call 3 times a week. David had moved back to Seattle in September, into an affordable apartment in Ballard. He walked with a cane, still had limitations, but was independent. He had started working remotely, consulting for tech companies. Joseph visited him once a month, not as father and son. They never used those terms, but as friends, perhaps, or ments. David taught Joseph about enterprise software design. Joseph showed David his projects. They ordered pizza and watched Star Trek. And slowly, on the edges of this unlikely relationship, something like family was forming. Olivia had even had dinner with David twice. Civilized conversations where they discussed Joseph, his development, his needs. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't full forgiveness. But it was peace. And that was more than Olivia had ever imagined possible. Everything was finally okay. Then the phone rang again. Not Karen this time. Joseph's school nurse. "Mrs. Spencer? You need to come pick up Joseph. He's not feeling well." Olivia arrived at the school in 20 minutes, breaking every speed limit. Joseph was in the nurse's office, lying on a couch, pale in a way that made Olivia's stomach drop. "Mama," he said weakly, "I'm really tired, and I have bruises. Look." He lifted his shirt. Purple marks dotted his torso and arms. "How long have you had these bruises, sweetie?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice calm as panic surged. "A few weeks? I thought it was from bumping into things. You know how I don't always notice when I bump." Proprioception, Body awareness was a challenge for many autistic people. Joseph often had small bruises from bumping into things. But this was different. "Let's go to the doctor," Olivia said, already grabbing her phone and dialing Joseph's pediatrician. The pediatrician saw them immediately. He did a physical exam, ordered blood tests. His tone was calm, but Olivia could see the concern. "It's probably just a vitamin deficiency or something viral," he said, "but we'll run full tests to be sure." The tests were done that afternoon. Olivia was instructed to wait 48 hours for the results. Those were the longest 48 hours of Olivia's life. She told no one, not Dorothy, not James, certainly not Joseph, who was convinced it was just school fatigue. She smiled, prepared meals, helped with homework, and died 1,000 deaths inside waiting for that phone to ring. When it did, Thursday at 2 p.m., Olivia was in a meeting with government clients. She saw the pediatrician's office number, and her blood ran cold. "Excuse me, I need to take this," she said, leaving the conference room. "Mrs. Spencer, this is Dr. Martinez. I need you to come to the office. Today, if possible. We have Joseph's results. Just tell me over the phone. I really prefer. Dr. Martinez, please." A pause. A sigh. The tests show very low blood cell counts. Dangerously low platelets, which explain the bruising. Low white blood cells. "I'm referring Joseph to a pediatric oncologist at Seattle Children's Hospital. Today, the world tilted. Oncologist. Cancer. You're telling me my son has cancer?" "We don't know yet, but the numbers suggest his bone marrow isn't producing blood cells properly. It could be leukemia. It could be aplastic anemia. Could be other things. We need more tests." Olivia doesn't remember finishing the call. Doesn't remember going back to the conference room, apologizing, canceling the meeting. Doesn't remember driving to the school to get Joseph. But she remembers looking at her son in the back seat, innocently playing on his tablet, unaware that their lives were about to explode again. "Joseph, sweetie, we need to go to the hospital for some more tests." "Okay," he said distractedly, not looking up. "Can I bring my tablet?" "You can bring anything you want, my love." Seattle Children's Hospital, the same hospital where Joseph had been diagnosed with autism 10 years ago. Olivia felt the sharp irony as she parked. Dr. Rachel Kim, the pediatric oncologist, was kind but direct. She examined Joseph, reviewed the tests, and ordered more. Bone marrow biopsy, lumbar puncture, complete genetic testing. Joseph, always logical, asked technical questions about the procedures. Olivia held his hand and tried not to crumble. The procedures were done under light sedation. Olivia waited in a sterile room, staring at white walls, trying to breathe. James arrived. She had finally called him. He held her as she trembled. "He's going to be okay," James whispered. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." But Olivia had learned long ago that not everything turns out okay just because you want it to. 3 days of tests. 3 days in which Joseph slept a lot, complained of tiredness, and Olivia smiled and said it was just the tests, that they'd soon know what it was, that everything would be fine. Necessary lies. Protective lies. On Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, Dr. Kim called Olivia and James into her office. Without Joseph this time. "It's severe aplastic anemia," she said bluntly. "Joseph's bone marrow isn't producing blood cells properly. It's not cancer, which is good, but it's serious. Without treatment, it's fatal." The floor fell out from under Olivia. "What's the treatment?" "Immunosuppressants sometimes work, but the success rate is around 60 to 70%. His best chance is a bone marrow transplant. With a compatible donor, survival rates are 85 to 90%. So we test. Me, my mom, our relatives. We're already processing the blood we collected. But Mrs. Spencer, statistically, the best match comes from full siblings. Parents match about 50% of the time. Do you have any other children?" "No." "And the father?" Olivia and James exchanged a look. "The biological father, it's complicated. But he's in Seattle. We can test him. The sooner, the better. Joseph will need blood transfusions while we search for a donor. His platelet count is dangerously low." Olivia left that office on autopilot. She called Dorothy, who broke down on the phone but promised to catch the next flight from Tacoma. She called the school, arranged immediate medical leave, and then, with trembling hands, she called David. "Liv, are you okay? You never call. Normally it's text." "David, it's Joseph. He's sick. Really sick. He has aplastic anemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. I need you to get tested. Today, if possible." Silence on the other end. "David, I will." His voice was hoarse. "Send me the address. I'm coming now." The following days turned into a nightmare of hospitals, doctors, and blood transfusions. Joseph needed to be admitted. His platelet count was so low that any fall, any cut, could be fatal. He was confined to a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs, receiving transfusions every other day. And Olivia? Olivia transformed into something between a mother bear and a war general. She moved into the hospital room with Joseph. James brought clean clothes, food. Dorothy came every day, but Olivia did not leave. She slept in the uncomfortable chair beside Joseph's bed, waking at every beep of the monitor, watching every nurse, questioning every doctor. But she also had a business empire to manage. Her team was incredible, taking on clients, managing projects. But there were things only Olivia could do. Government client presentations, strategic decisions, the TEDx talk that was 3 months away. So Olivia did the impossible. She worked from the hospital room, laptop balanced on her knees, low-voiced Zoom calls while Joseph slept, reviewing contracts under hostile fluorescent lights at 2 a.m. She was on a video call with the Department of Health in Washington, D.C. when the compatibility test results arrived. "Sorry, I need to go," she said abruptly, hanging up without ceremony when she saw Dr. Kim enter the room. The doctor held papers. Her expression was neutral, trained not to give hope or despair before speaking. "We tested you, your mother, and David Monson," she began. "You are a partial match, 50%. Your mother is 25%. But David," she smiled, "David is 100% compatible. Perfect on all antigens. Extremely rare for parents, but it happens." Joseph got lucky. Olivia felt her knees go weak. "So he can donate? We can do the transplant." "Yes, but there are complexities. David has a history of spinal trauma, multiple surgeries. Bone marrow donation is an invasive procedure. There are risks for him too, especially given his compromised health." "What kind of risks?" "General anesthesia in someone with a surgical history carries risks. Infection, bleeding. In rare cases, complications can be fatal. We'd need his full consent, understanding the risks." "When can we talk to him?" "He's out there now. He asked to speak with you before seeing Joseph." Olivia found David in the waiting room, sitting in his wheelchair. He still used it for long distances. When he saw her, he stood with his cane, always wanting to be upright when they spoke. "I'm compatible," he said. Not a question, a statement, as if he already knew. "Yes, perfectly compatible." "So when do we do this?" "David, there are risks. For you." The doctor needs to explain. "I don't care about the risks." His voice was steel. "I don't care if the chance is 99% or 1%. That's my son there. My son I abandoned, whom I failed in every possible way. This is my chance to finally be the father I should have been. So when do we do this?" Olivia looked at this man who had broken her heart, who had left when she needed him most, and saw something she had never seen before. Redemption, not in words, not in apologies, but in action, in willing sacrifice, in love unproven but finally demonstrated. "I'll get the doctor," she whispered. Dr. Kim explained everything. The procedure, large needles in the pelvis, bone marrow extracted under general anesthesia. The recovery, significant pain, 4 to 6 weeks. The risks, bleeding, infection, anesthetic complications, especially concerning given his compromised spine. There's a 5 to 10% chance of serious complications, she concluded, and given his history, maybe higher. "And if I don't donate?" David asked. "What are Joseph's chances?" "No compatible donor? With immunosuppressants alone, 60 to 70% survival, with a compatible unrelated donor from the registry. If we find one, 75 to 80%. With you, 90%. David did not hesitate. Then we do it. When? We need 2 weeks to prepare Joseph. More transfusions, preparatory chemotherapy to destroy what remains of his diseased marrow. You also need full medical evaluation, authorization from your orthopedic surgeon, cardiologist. I'll do it all today. And he did. David spent the next days test after test. EKG, X-rays, consultations with specialists, each one expressing concern, warning of risks, but finally, reluctantly, approving. Meanwhile, Olivia faced another battle, financial. Health insurance would cover most, but there were gaps. Copays, specialized anti-rejection medications, costing $10,000 per month. Potential extended hospital stay if complications arose. Olivia sat with the hospital financial counselor and saw numbers that made even her business mind spin. $300,000 to $500,000 in total costs. Insurance covered 80%. She was looking at $60,000 to $100,000 out of her own pocket. I can do this, she said, chin up. I have savings. I have the business. I can do this. But she also knew it meant compromising company resources, delaying expansion, possibly reducing staff. It didn't matter. Joseph was everything. The business was just money. She canceled the TEDx talk, postponed the Harvard Business Review interview, handed 70% of government contracts to her senior consultants to manage. Spencer Resilience Consulting could survive without her at the helm for a few months. Joseph could not. You don't have to do this alone, James said one night while she worked on insurance paperwork at 11 p.m. in the hospital room. Let me help financially. Let me. James, I can't ask that of you. You're not asking. I'm offering. Liv, I love you. I love Joseph. Let me be there for you. Olivia looked at this good man, this man who had patiently waited for her to trust him, and finally let her last walls fall. Okay, she whispered. Okay, together. He held her as she finally, for the first time since Joseph's diagnosis, let herself cry. Joseph needed to know what was happening. He was 12 years old, intelligent, observant. He knew something was wrong, but Olivia had protected him from the full details until they had a plan. Now they had a plan, and Joseph deserved the truth. Olivia, James, and Dorothy sat around Joseph's hospital bed. David had asked to be there too, but Olivia said no, not yet. First, his family. Joseph, dear, we need to talk about what's going to happen next, Olivia began. Joseph set his tablet aside. He always knew when conversations were serious. Okay, you have a condition called aplastic anemia. It means your bone marrow, the soft part inside your bones that makes blood cells, isn't working properly. That's why I'm always tired, Joseph said. And the bruises. Exactly. And to fix it, you need a bone marrow transplant. Basically, we destroy your diseased bone marrow with chemotherapy and then give you healthy bone marrow from a donor. Joseph processed this. Who is the donor? Olivia took a deep breath. David, your biological father. He's 100% compatible, which is very rare and means the chances of success are very high. Joseph stayed quiet, his mind working through the implications. Will he have to have surgery? He finally asked. Yes, they'll put needles in his hips and take out bone marrow. It will hurt a lot, and there are risks for him too. What kind of risks? Olivia looked at Dorothy, then James. Neither of them knew if they should tell a 12-year-old that a medical procedure could kill someone. But Joseph deserved honesty. He always had. There's a small chance of serious complications, Olivia said carefully, because he's already had so many surgeries on his spine. But the doctor said it's safe enough to try. Joseph nodded slowly. Then, he wants to do this, even with the risks. He insists on doing it. Why? Olivia felt tears sting her eyes. Because he loves you, dear. In his own way, he loves you. And this is his chance to finally be a real father. Joseph was quiet for a long time. Then, very softly, can I talk to him? Before the surgery? Of course, my love. He's waiting out there. David entered hesitantly, cane in one hand, holding a book in the other. Hi, Joseph, he said softly. I brought this for you. Thought you might like it while you're in the hospital. He handed over the book, a special edition of A Martian, about an astronaut trapped on Mars solving problems with logic and science. Thank you, Joseph said, taking the book. Then, straight to the point as always, Mama said you're going to donate bone marrow to me, and that there are risks for you. David sat in the chair beside the bed. There are small risks. But Joseph, nothing compared to the risk of not doing it. Losing you. This donation, it's the most important thing I will ever do in my life. More important than your work. Infinitely more important. And what if something goes wrong? For you, I mean. David leaned forward. Then at least I will have done one thing right. One thing that matters. After years of doing everything wrong. Joseph looked at his hands. I don't want you to die. The words hung in the air like a prayer. David blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I won't die. I'm too stubborn. Ask my physical therapists. He smiled. Besides, I still haven't taught you C++ programming. You promised you'd learn it. Joseph gave a small smile. You promised to teach. Then the two of us have to survive this. Deal. Joseph held out his hand. Deal. They shook hands, formal and serious, sealing a pact between father and son that was 10 years too late, but still, somehow, perfectly on time. November 9th, 2022. Both surgeries were scheduled to happen simultaneously in separate operating rooms at Seattle Children's Hospital. Joseph first, preparatory chemotherapy had been completed over the past few days, killing his diseased bone marrow. Now he would be prepared to receive the new marrow. David in an operating room on the floor below, marrow being extracted. Olivia was torn apart. She couldn't be in two places at once. Go with Joseph, David said when they met at 6 a.m., pre-surgery. He needs his mom. I have my mom. Margaret was there, pale but present. David, live, please. Let me do this. Let me finally be useful. Olivia nodded, but before stepping away, she did something that surprised them both. She took his hand and squeezed it. Thank you, she whispered, for choosing to stay this time. David's eyes filled. Thank you for letting me. Joseph was taken first. Olivia held his hand until the last possible second before the surgery doors closed between them. See you on the other side, Mama, Joseph said, sleepy from premedication but trying to be brave. See you on the other side, my love. And then he was gone, and Olivia was in the waiting room with James, Dorothy, and a cup of coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink. 2 hours later, Dr. Kim emerged. Joseph is fine. Marrow is going. Now we wait for David. David's marrow extraction took longer. Complications with anesthesia due to his surgical history. Difficulty with positioning because of his compromised spine. 3 hours. 4. 5. Margaret started crying. It's taking too long. Something's wrong. Finally, at 2 p.m., David's orthopedic surgeon came out. He looked exhausted. We got the marrow. Excellent quantity. But there were complications. Bleeding where we entered the pelvis, near where your old spinal surgery left scar tissue. We managed it, but he lost a lot of blood. He's recovering now, but we'll need to stay here for several days. We'll monitor him closely. But will he be okay? Margaret asked desperately. We hope so, but the next few days are critical. David's marrow was transplanted into Joseph at 3 p.m. intravenously, like a simple blood transfusion. The marrow cells would find their way to Joseph's bones, settle in, and begin to grow. If all went well, now they waited. Days 1 to 10 after the transplant were the most dangerous. Joseph's immune system was completely shut down, vulnerable to any infection. He was in strict isolation. Everyone entering the room wore a mask, gloves, gown. And while Joseph struggled to survive the transplant, 3 floors below, David was fighting complications from the donation. The bleeding had been worse than initially thought. David needed transfusions. He developed a fever. Infection at the extraction site. Olivia was torn between 2 hospital rooms, 2 people she loved in such different and complicated ways, both fighting. During the day, she stayed with Joseph, reading to him when he was awake, monitoring every temperature, every vital sign, working on her laptop while he slept. Contracts still needed reviewing. Clients still needed attention. Life didn't stop just because you were in the hospital. At night, after Joseph fell asleep for medication, she went down to David's floor. He was pale, feverish, clearly in pain. "How's he doing?" David always asked first, never about himself. Day 3. No signs of rejection yet. Low-grade fever, but expected. Blood counts still very low, but should start rising in a few days if the marrow takes. "It will take," David said confidently. "It has to take." "How are you?" "Fine." Obvious lie. He could barely move without wincing. "David." "Live. I donated bone marrow. Of course it hurts. But pain means I'm alive. And if I'm alive, I can know how Joseph is. So pain is good." On day 5, Joseph began showing the first signs of engraftment. The marrow from David starting to work. White blood cell counts rising slightly. Platelets beginning to appear. "It's early," Dr. Kim warned, "but promising." But David was worsening. The fever wouldn't break. The infection was spreading despite aggressive antibiotics. "We need to take him to surgery," David's doctor informed Margaret and Olivia on day 7. "Clean out the infected area. There's risk with another surgery so soon, but the infection will kill him if we do nothing." Margaret collapsed. Olivia held her. "Do the surgery," Olivia said. "Save him." They took David into surgery that night. Olivia stayed with Margaret in the waiting room, holding the older woman's hand, both praying to gods they barely believed in, making bargains they knew they couldn't keep. "He's dying to save Joseph," Margaret cried. "My son is dying to redeem the mistake of abandoning him." "He won't die," Olivia said fiercely. "He can't. Joseph needs him now. And she paused, surprised by her own words. "And I need him to stay. I need him to see Joseph grow. I need him to be the father he's becoming." The surgery lasted 3 hours. They cleaned the infection, but the trauma to David's body was immense. "The next 48 hours are critical," the surgeon said. "If he makes it through this, he has a chance to fight." Meanwhile, Joseph improved every day. Day 10, blood counts definitely rising. Day 14, first solid meal. Day 18, allowed out of bed, walking down the hall with a mask. "When can I see David?" Joseph asked every day. "Is he okay? Did he get sick because of me?" Olivia didn't know how to answer. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that the man who saved him was now fighting for his own life? "He's recovering," she said, technical careful. "His surgery was more complicated than yours, but he's fighting." On day 20 post-transplant, Dr. Kim came with news. The graft is fully taken. David's bone marrow is producing healthy blood cells in Joseph. Technically, Joseph now has David's DNA in his blood system. They are connected in a way they've never been before. Olivia felt tears stream down her face. "So he'll be okay. Joseph will recover." With ongoing care, monitoring, anti-rejection medication, yes, Joseph will fully recover. Olivia ran 3 floors down, bursting into David's room where he was sleeping, feverish but finally stable after the second surgery. "David." She shook him gently. "David, wake up." He opened his eyes slowly, confused by medication. "It worked," Olivia said, laughing and crying at the same time. "It took. Joseph is going to be okay. You saved him. You really saved him." David closed his eyes, and a single tear ran down his face. "Thank God," he whispered. "Thank God." November turned into December. Christmas lights began to appear across Seattle, but for Olivia, time was measured not by holidays, but by medical reports, blood counts, small victories. Joseph remained in the hospital for a total of 6 weeks. David's marrow continued producing healthy cells. His immune system was slowly rebuilding. He still needed anti-rejection medication, still needed infection precautions, but he was alive. He was healing. David, however, had a much harder road. The infection had caused significant damage. He developed pneumonia. His kidneys temporarily failed from all the antibiotics. There was a terrible week when the doctors weren't sure he would make it. But David was stubborn. He fought. "I can't die yet," he told Olivia during one of her nighttime visits, his voice hoarse but determined. "I haven't taught Joseph C++ yet. I haven't seen him graduate. I haven't walked to him without my cane. I have a list, Liv, and I won't die until it's done." Slowly, painfully, he improved. By mid-December, both were discharged on the same day, the careful planning of the doctors making the moment meaningful. Joseph was released first. Olivia bundled him up like a mummy, mask, gloves, thick coat even though it wasn't that cold. Motherly paranoia about infections now that his immune system was fragile. "Mama, I'm fine," Joseph protested. "Dr. Kim said I can live a normal life with precautions." "Precautions mean coat," Olivia said firmly, though she was smiling. Her son was going home. After 6 weeks of hell, her son was going home. They stopped by David's room before leaving. He was being assisted into a wheelchair by a nurse, still too weak to walk long distances, but going home as well. Joseph entered, still masked, and paused at the doorway. David looked up, his entire face lighting up. "Joseph," he said softly, "you're okay." "I'm okay," Joseph confirmed. "Because of you." An awkward silence. Neither was good with intense emotion. Then Joseph did something that surprised everyone in the room. He walked over to David and, very carefully, leaned down and hugged him. It was brief. Joseph had never been one for long hugs. But it was real. It was his choice. "Thank you," Joseph whispered against David's shoulder, "for staying this time, for fighting." David closed his eyes, arms wrapping around his son for the first time in 12 years, and something broken inside him finally began to heal. "Always, Joseph," he whispered back. "From now on, always." Christmas 2022 was unlike any other. Joseph was still recovering. No big gatherings, no unnecessary germs. But he was home, he was alive, and he was improving every day. David was in his ballot apartment, also recovering. Still in pain, still weak, but alive against all odds. Olivia decided to do something unthinkable a year ago. She invited David to Christmas at her house. "It'll be small," she explained over the phone. "Just me, Joseph, James, my mom." But Joseph asked if he could come. "And I would like you to come too." There was silence on the other end. Then a thick voice. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. You're part of Joseph's life now. You've earned this. Through everything you've been through, you've earned a place here." Christmas Day arrived with rare snow in Seattle, soft flakes blanketing the city in silent white. David arrived by Uber, still unable to drive. He walked to the door with his cane, carrying awkward presents. Nervous like a teenager on a first date, Olivia opened the door, and for a moment, they just stood there, looking at each other. 12 years of history between them. Pain and betrayal and slow forgiveness and hard-earned redemption. "Merry Christmas, David," she said softly. "Merry Christmas, Liv." Joseph came down the stairs, still masked as a precaution, his eyes lighting up when he saw David. "You came, and you're walking." "I came, and I'm walking," David smiled, though slowly. "Slow is still progress," Joseph said, wisdom beyond his years. Dorothy remained politely distant. She probably would never fully forgive David, and no one expected her to. But she was civil. She was kind. For Joseph, James was gracious, shaking David's hand, acknowledging the awkwardness of the whole situation, but navigating it with the skill of a therapist. They had dinner together. Turkey Olivia had spent hours preparing, potatoes, vegetables. Conversations were awkward at first, but gradually became more natural. Joseph dominated the conversation, as he always did, talking animatedly about the new programming project he had started during recovery. A game about bone marrow transplants teaching people about donation. "I'm going to call it Second Chance," he said, "because that's what a transplant gives. A second chance." David looked at Olivia across the table, and something passed between them. Understanding. Gratitude. The recognition that they had both been given second chances they didn't deserve but would honor. After dinner, presents. Joseph gave David a framed picture, a photo of them in the hospital, taken by a nurse on the day of his discharge. both looking exhausted but alive. Family in a strange, imperfect way. For you to remember, Joseph said simply. To remember that it's worth fighting. David held the photo as if it were the most precious thing in the world. I'll never forget. I promise. David gave Joseph a brand new laptop, top of the line, perfect for serious programming. For your projects, he said, for all the amazing things you'll create. Then he handed Olivia an envelope. It's not much, he said nervously, but I wanted to help. Olivia opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000. David, I can't. It's to cover medical costs, he interrupted. I know insurance doesn't cover everything. I know you spent a fortune. This isn't nearly enough, but it's all I've saved. And it's the least I can do after everything you've done. For Joseph, for me, for all of us. Olivia looked at that check, at this man who had once been a coward but had become something different through fire, pain, and the choice to fight. Thank you, she whispered. It means more than you know. James was sitting on the couch, watching the whole scene unfold. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He stood, knelt before Olivia, and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I was going to wait, he said, his voice trembling. But this moment feels right. Olivia, you are the strongest, most incredible woman I've ever known. You built an empire from nothing, raised an extraordinary child alone, faced every imaginable nightmare and emerged stronger. And I want to spend the rest of my life by your side. Olivia Spencer, will you marry me? The room went completely silent. Olivia looked at James, this good man who had waited, who had supported her, who had loved her through everything. Then she looked at Joseph, smiling widely. Then at Dorothy, wiping her tears. And finally at David. David was smiling too, genuinely and warmly. Say yes, he encouraged softly. You deserve it. You deserve happiness. You deserve a partner who stays. And in that moment, Olivia realized that the walls around her heart had finally fallen completely. That she trusted again. That she was ready. Yes, she said, laughing through tears. Yes, I will marry you. James slid the ring onto her finger, and the room erupted in joy. Joseph clapping in his awkward way. Dorothy sobbing happily. Even David had tears in his eyes. June 2023. The school auditorium was packed for the 8th grade promotion ceremony. Seattle called it promotion instead of graduation for middle school. Joseph sat with his classmates, diploma ready to be received, wearing a suit Olivia had struggled to get him to wear. But Mama, it's uncomfortable. It's for 2 hours. You can handle it. In the audience, Olivia sat between James, her fiancé, wedding planned for September, and Dorothy. A few rows back, David sat with Margaret. When Joseph's name was called, he walked onto the stage, accepted his diploma, and then did something unexpected. He grabbed the microphone. May I say something? He asked the principal, who seemed surprised but nodded. Joseph turned to the audience, not making eye contact because he never did, but his voice was clear and strong. This year was hard, he began. I got very sick. I almost died. But I didn't because people saved me. Doctors and nurses and my family. I want to thank my mom, who is the strongest person I know, who built an incredible business, took care of me alone my whole life, and never, ever gave up, even when it was really hard. Olivia was crying now, not caring that everyone could see. And I want to thank my biological father, David, Joseph continued, who gave me bone marrow even though it was dangerous for him, who chose to fight when he could have given up, who taught me that people can change if they really try. David was crying too, hand over his mouth, trying to maintain composure. And I want everyone to know, Joseph concluded, that second chances are real, that families can be complicated and imperfect, but still real. And it's worth fighting for. It's always worth fighting for. The audience erupted in applause. Joseph handed the microphone back, waved awkwardly, and returned to his seat, looking relieved it was over. After the ceremony, outside under the Seattle summer sun, they took photos. Joseph with Olivia and James, Joseph with Dorothy, Joseph with David, and then a photo of everyone together. This strange, patched, impossible family forged through pain, choice, and slow forgiveness. David stood slightly apart, unsure of his place. It was Olivia who pulled him into the group. "You belong here," she said firmly. "You've earned your place." As the photographer counted down, Olivia looked at the people around her. Joseph, her extraordinary son, now fully healthy, starting high school in August. James, her future husband, a partner who had proven not all men run. Dorothy, her mother, a steadfast rock through everything. And David, the ghost of her past who had become something different. Not a husband, not exactly a friend, but family in a strange, precious way. She had started this journey 12 years ago, abandoned and broken, with a small child and a frightening diagnosis. She had built an empire. She had raised an extraordinary child. She had survived life-threatening illness. She had learned to trust again. She had found room for forgiveness she thought impossible. And now, standing in the Seattle sun with all the people she loved around her, Olivia Spencer realized she had done more than survive. She had thrived. She had won. And her story of pain and resilience, of breaking and rebuilding, of anger and forgiveness, was just beginning. Because Spencer Resilience Consulting now had a contract to write a book about her journey. From abandonment to empire, a warrior mother rebuilding life and business after betrayal. The TEDx talk had been rescheduled for September, the same month as her wedding. 3 major tech companies in Seattle had contracted her to develop resilience programs for employees. And more important than any professional success, she had family. Complicated, imperfect, beautiful in its strangeness. As the camera clicked, capturing them all together, Olivia was smiling genuinely for the first time in 12 years. Not the smile of someone pretending strength she didn't feel, but the smile of someone who had walked through fire and emerged not just alive, but truly, completely free. The summer sun shone over Seattle as they got ready to leave. Joseph was showing David something on his phone. His new game was almost ready to launch. James and Dorothy were laughing about something. Margaret was taking more photos. And Olivia stood there for just a moment, taking it all in. She thought about the woman she had been 12 years ago. Scared, alone, betrayed. She thought about every night she'd cried, every day she'd fought, every time she'd wanted to give up but didn't. She thought about the business she'd built when she had just $20,000 and a dream. How she'd turned her pain into purpose, her tears into strength, her story into hope for others. She thought about Joseph, her extraordinary son, who had taught her so much about unconditional love, about seeing beauty in difference, about fighting for what matters. And she thought about David and the impossible journey they had taken, from abandonment to redemption, from death to rebirth, from anger to something that looked suspiciously like forgiveness. "Mama," Joseph called, "let's go get pizza. James said I get to pick the place, and I want the one with the arcade." Olivia laughed. "Of course, sweetheart. Pizza with an arcade." As they walked toward the cars, David beside her, moving slowly but walking. No wheelchair, just a cane. He spoke softly. "Liv, I'll never be able to thank you enough. For everything. For giving me the chance to know Joseph. For letting him know me. For giving me the opportunity to finally be the father I should have been." Olivia looked at him. This man who had once been her greatest pain and, in a strange way, part of her greatest healing. "You earned it, David," she said. "Through choice, through sacrifice, through showing up when it mattered most. You're not the man who walked away 12 years ago. You're someone different now. And that person is welcome in Joseph's life. And in mine too." David wiped his tears quickly. "I still regret every day I missed. Every birthday, every milestone, every moment." "I know, and you'll carry that. But David, you have now. You have the future. Don't waste it looking back. Joseph doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be present." "Present," David repeated. "I can do present." "Then that's enough." They reached the cars. Joseph ran back, grabbing Olivia's hand with one and David's with the other. "Come on," he said, pulling them both. "I'm starving, and I want you and David to play with me at the arcade. James said he's terrible, so we need balanced teams." Olivia laughed, letting her 12-year-old son pull her forward. toward pizza and arcade games and the precious, ordinary normalcy of life. She had been a single mother fighting alone. She had been a businesswoman building an empire from nothing. She had been a betrayed woman learning to trust again. She had been a warrior fighting for her son through a life-threatening illness. And now she was simply Olivia, loved, whole, free. And that, finally, was more than enough. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever faced abandonment, betrayal, or had to rebuild your life from the ashes, know that you are not alone. Leave a comment below sharing which part of Olivia's story resonated with you the most. And if you know someone who needs to hear that it's possible to rebuild, that second chances exist, that strength comes from places you never imagined, share this video. Your share could be exactly the hope someone needs today. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories of overcoming, of warrior mothers who transform pain into victory, betrayal into triumph. And remember, you are stronger than you think. Your story isn't over. It's only just beginning.